campus and being able to help a larger portion of the student body. We have a board of trustees meeting next month, and so that should take place. Hopefully it won't be virtual, but I assume it's going to be. It's later in the month, so I'll keep everybody updated in the loop on that, especially as new decisions and updates come on in regard to the state and the future of the North Carolina system. We have begun to start looking into some initiatives outside of the realm of COVID-19, some of those being partnering with different organizations on campus, especially as we're trying to plan with the Red Zone Initiative and sexual assault and gender-based violence awareness into the fall semester and throughout the summer. We're going to begin partnering with the Delta Advocates and Champions of Change, which are two independent organizations dedicated to the spreading of awareness and prevention of these kind of issues and violence on and around campus. So we'll keep you updated as those initiatives go on. We're also looking towards some discussions around civic engagement and registering students. So instead of having in-person orientations this summer, it's going to be kind of difficult with new incoming students. So we're having conversations later in the week, especially as there's been a new position in the Student Life and Leadership Office dedicated to civic engagement. So we're going to have conversations ongoing with that through the rest of the semester and then into the summer. So we're prepared for the fall come November. We are also planning on having a conversation with EBO and Interim Vice Chancellor Jonathan Sauls in the next coming weeks, just to discuss what coming back to normal is going to look like and how we're going to be able to welcome both incoming students and first-year students for the first time, as well as returning students, and what that dynamic is going to look like, how we can, return to normal but still embracing the difficult challenges that lie ahead of us. And we're also looking toward a cross-collaboration initiative between Duke and UNC in regard to mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'll keep you updated on that as well. We're actually working with or speaking with the new student body president-elect of Duke. And so that's kind of an ongoing process with a lot of moving parts, but hopefully we'll be able to have a lot of collaboration moving forward. But yeah, good luck on everything and excited for this summer.
Thank you, Reeves. Do we have a message from the Vice President?
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Pri. I'm the current Vice President. Reeves touched upon a lot of the initiatives that we currently have going on within EBO and within the executive branch. Just wanted to also let y'all know that we just wrapped up doing our initial review of applications for the external appointments, and we will be conducting interviews for the external appointments going into Saturday. So we're really excited to see everyone who wanted to apply for all of the, I think, almost 50 external appointments we have, and really get started on working on some of those faculty and administrative and student initiatives that we have going into this year. But that's all for me. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Do we have a message from the treasurer?
Not too much, everybody. I have met with the new organizational and deputy treasurers last week, Megan Avatakunta and Jack Illes. They are really looking forward to increasing the publicity of the treasurer's office and overall the publicity of the role of finances in student government on campus. So I'm looking forward to sort of setting out a program with them over the next year to sort of leave some institutional memory in place as far as how to reach students as it regards to finances. Another long-term goal for me this year is to be working with Finance Chair Shukla to look at the finance title in the code. I believe after the typo bill that was passed last session, it's still considered Title IV. So I'll want to be looking at that with her and the rest of the finance committee to see if we can somehow tighten up or loosen certain parts of the regulations to make the appropriations process easier. But that'll be something a bit more long-term that I'll be working with both them and my two treasurers with. I'm open for queries.
Anybody have questions for the treasurer?
All right, thank y'all.
Seeing none. Do we have a message from the Director of State and External Affairs?
Yeah, hey y'all, happy last week of classes. This week I begun my transition to the Campus Community Coalition. That is a committee made up of 3 professional members of the community and a senior advisor and a member of EBO. We met this week with my outgoing counterpart Ariel to kind of talk about what plans for next year are going to look like, making contingency plans for a lot of our initiatives to be on Zoom, such as Lobbying 101. We have some other initiatives, such as the Good Neighbor initiative, that we're kind of concerned can't really happen virtually, but we're going ahead and trying to think about that. As we talked about with civic engagement and voter registration, we're starting to talk about that this week. Given that orientation is going to be online, we're talking about hosting voter registration in the residence halls with trained members from NC-PIRG there to make sure everyone is getting registered correctly. And I had a really productive conversation this past week with the president-elect of ASG and Reeves to talk about how UNC can be more involved in the Association of Student Governments going forward. And I also wanted to note that if you have any questions or inquiries or ever want to ask me a question about state and external affairs, I'm going to leave my contact information in the chat here.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Alyssa? All right, seeing none. Is the student attorney general here? Don't believe so. And we are appointing the honor court chair tonight. Don't believe the old one is here. There are no papers addressed to the Senate, so we'll move on to the reports of the officers. Drew?
Yes, so ethics met for our first meeting last night. Nothing too serious, just sort of acquainting everyone with ethics laws, which new senators, if you want to take a look at that, that's section 5 in our code. And yeah, that's about it. I'm really excited for this session. Oh, one reminder I would give to all of y'all, please complete the onboarding test that we sent out. I can drop the link in the chat. I do need that information from you guys to adhere to the different laws in our code and just really get the session going. So that's about it. Thank you.
It appears I skipped over Bobby. I think I forgot to put that on the agenda. Sorry, Bobby. Do we have a message from the Student Government Advisor? No?
There's no official message. Just wanted to wish everybody good luck as you go into finals. And if you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Thank you. Sorry about that. All right, getting back to the chairs of the committees. Do we have a message from the ONA chair?
Yeah, guys. Hey, we met for our first meeting yesterday. We didn't have really any official business, but we did do some introductions and got acquainted with ONA, and we also elected our vice chair, which is Senator McFerrin. So we're very excited for that. That's all.
Thank you. Do we have a message from the R&J chair?
Yes, we met yesterday. Excuse me. And we considered 2 nominees, one for a senior advisor role and one for the honor court chair. Both of them were liked by the committee. I think everybody had good things to say, but the honor court chair is one of the positions that the code requires to appear before full Senate before confirmation. So that's why she's on the general orders calendar. We'll be hearing from her tonight. We considered another bill that I'm planning to withdraw. So yeah, we don't need to get into that. That's all I got. Keisha, you're muted.
My bad. Do we have a message from the finance chair?
Yeah, hey guys. We also met yesterday for our first finance meeting. It was much of the same. We did introductions, vice chair elections, which congratulations to Vice Chair Richards. And also we just went over basic appropriations and funding days information, but not really much further than that.
Thank you, Asha. Any questions for the finance chair? Do we have anything from the speaker pro tempore?
Hey everyone, just briefly, yes, I was able to sit in on the co-chair and committee meetings on yesterday. Congratulations to the vice presidents, the vice chairs that were elected on yesterday, and I'm excited to continue to work with everyone.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker pro tem? All right, I am up next. Hey everyone, welcome to our second meeting of the session now. Hope you're all doing well. On my end, I've just been transitioning into my role. Committees had our first meetings last night, and so those all went splendidly. Congratulations to the vice chairs again on their elections. In terms of things that I need to update you guys on, this will be our last session meeting before finals week, and then after finals week, I will release emails regarding summer session meetings. Student government Senate is required to meet, I believe it's at least twice over the summer, if not more. And so we will release a poll for which days work best for everyone, which days that you cannot make. And because we're obligated to meet over the summer, please make sure that you're listing your availability as it really is. In addition to that, Maya and I will also, after finals week, be sending out some sort of schedule on the spreadsheet to sign up for individual appointment slots with us, so that you guys can start talking to us. So we can get a better idea of what all your goals are, what you want to do for this upcoming year. So be looking out for that. If you have not already, please fill out the onboarding form that I sent out in the last email that Drew created. It's important that we get all the information in ASAP so that we're in compliance with the ethics requirements. In addition to that, we will be making the student code test and the treasurer's test available after finals week as well. We don't want to crowd your plates right now with anything, but just make sure that you're aware that that's on the horizon. I don't think there's anything else. We have some, in terms of what we'll be doing tonight, we'll be appointing, or Senior Advisor Lacey Hill is on the consent calendar. So once we pass the consent calendar, that'll be that. And then we'll be hearing from Claudia, who's the appointment for the Honor Court Chair. And Baxter has withdrawn the bill for the external appointments that we originally had to sort of amend that process. And there'll be a new bill introduced in Committee of the Whole that we'll be discussing to talk about that process. And that's everything on my end. Thank you all. Moving on. Does anyone wish to speak during the public comment period?
Hi, I'm Olivia, and I wanted to speak on the external appointment process. I'm a sophomore, and I was on 2 external appointments this past year, and so I was going through the process to reapply for new ones and got a little confused, and the process was just confusing, and I thought it was something that would be a good thing to amend or make just a little bit more clear. So I applied, or I did the renewal form for both my positions. And then, and that ended, I think that was due the 17th, I think. And then on the 18th, I applied generally for new external appointments, but I wasn't sure if I was still, I was going to be renewed for the old ones. So I went ahead and applied for new ones too, just not knowing because I was confused. And then I received an email a couple of days later that basically just said, either we don't want you for external appointments, or this might be because you're already on 2. And so it was just kind of confusing for me just to know, not knowing if I'd already been renewed before I applied for new ones, and stuff like that. And I also was on 2, but was willing to switch one, to try to get a new one. But with the process that was in place, I was just kind of confused on how to go about that. So overall, it was just a little bit confusing, and I think that there could be some improvements there, just to make it a little bit more clear. But that's all I really have to say. But thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. Does anybody else wish to address the Senate during the public comment period? All right, seeing no one else. We'll be moving on to the consent calendar now. I'll share my screen so you can all see the agenda. Can everyone see that? Quick little head nod. Yeah, all right. Do I have a motion on the consent? So the consent calendar currently contains Lacey Hill's appointment to senior advisor. Do I have a motion on the consent calendar?
I'd like to move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Perfect. And there's a second. All right.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
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 Sorry, Karen, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Any opposed?
I have a question.
I was gonna say.
Someone have a question? Sorry? Lamar, was that you? Did you have a question?
Oh no, not me.
Okay. All right. So the consent calendar has been passed, and next time I'll use the raise hand feature. It's probably going to be easier for this. So y'all bear with me. Perfect. Okay. Moving down. The next up is we have USR 102-003, which is the resolution to confirm Claudia Oper to the Honor Court Chair. Claudia, if you would like to briefly address the Senate.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a rising senior at Carolina, and I've been working with Honor Court since my first semester. And then I became a vice chair, which is like our leadership board for the Honor Court at the end of my sophomore year. So I've been able to have a variety of roles, being a court member and then also having a more active leadership role by directing hearings, deliberations, and seeing some more of the administrative workings. And so some, I guess, big goals that I have as Honor Court Chair would be, one of the pressing ones right now is we've been doing a lot of transitioning to be able to function remotely. And I think one of the silver linings from that is that we've been able to expedite some processes that probably could have been moved online a while ago. And so we have this opportunity to see how a hard time has forced invention. And so looking at how some of these new processes can be carried over even when we're back on campus, that's definitely an initiative that's on the forefront of my mind. Another one is that we have an aging court with a lot of people graduating this May, and so recruitment's going to be a big push in the fall. And then another overarching theme is making sure that all interactions people have with the court, whether that's a reporting party, faculty members, accused students, whoever it is, I want those to be favorable. So there's a lot of different mechanisms and different ways of looking at that I hope to institute moving forward.
All right, thank you. Reese, would you like to add anything to that?
Sorry, did you say me?
Yeah.
Not particularly. Just speaking on behalf of Claudia. We're both Keenan scholars through the undergraduate business program, and outside of the realm of Honor Court Chair, I've seen her work diligently on a lot of research projects and community service projects. So just knowing her as an individual, she's an incredibly, incredibly ambitious and genuine person. And I didn't even know that she was actually up for this role until she emailed me a couple of days just about the R&J committee process. But, she's an incredible person, and I know she's going to far exceed expectations in this role, which are already extremely high. So I really recommend her.
Perfect. Okay. We'll now move into question and answer period. If anybody has any questions they'd like to direct at Reeves or Claudia. But before we move into the period, I would just like to say that R&J has already been through its own question and answer period for Claudia, so we don't need to make this super extensive. But if anybody has any questions, let me move back. Having a bit of a difficulty trying to navigate soon. Sorry, y'all. No questions? You can use the raise hand feature in Zoom if you have a question for either Reeves or Claudia. All right, seeing no questions, do we have a motion on the floor?
Motion to enter discussion.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Just raise your hand in Zoom. Perfect. And all those opposed? All right. We are now in discussion. If anybody would like to speak, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom, and I will get to you. Okay, I'll go ahead and speak then. I was in the R&D committee in which we heard Claudia. She seems like a very qualified and competent candidate for the position. She's had experience in the honor court before, and I think this is a wonderful nomination. Yeah, Colin?
Yeah, I'm just gonna follow up with that. I'm in R&J and I was there last night, and I think that every question that anybody had for her, she had a really good answer, and it was really good to see that she's had a lot of forethought into the process and seeing things that needed to change, and also has actual concrete plans to address that. So I think she's extremely qualified for this and has a lot of potential to make the honor corps better.
Sorry. Give me 1 second. Let's plot it. Are there any other people who would like to discuss? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion on the floor?
Motion to move to a vote.
All right, there's been a motion to vote. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Second.
All right. Conduct this vote by roll call. All right, so if everyone could unmute themselves on the call you and vote yes, no, or abstain. Chair Barrett,
Yes.
Chair Benzea,
Yes.
Senator El Hadidi,
Yes.
Senator Goganani,
Yes.
vote yes. Pro Tem Logan,
Yes.
Vice Chair Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair McFerrin,
Yes.
Senator Murphy,
Yes.
Senator Olmsted,
Yes.
Senator Parkhurst,
Yes.
Chair Powell,
Yes.
Senator Reich,
Yes.
Vice Chair Richards,
Yes.
Senator Sarsour,
Yes.
Senator Shett,
Yes.
Chair Shukla,
Yes.
Member at Large Smith,
Yes.
Twilight is absent. All right, with the vote of 18 to 0, Claudia has been appointed the honor court chair. I'll just bring her back into the call. Hi, Claudia. The Senate voted to approve you to the honor court chair, so everyone give her a round of applause. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
If I had an excellent application, we look forward to seeing what you'll do with honor court this year.
Thank you. Is it okay to go ahead and leave the meeting now? Or?
Yep, you're free to go. Have a good night.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Next up, we have USB 102-004, but I believe Baxter, you'll be withdrawing this bill, correct?
Correct.
All right. All right. Next, I'm going to make a motion to move to committee of the whole because Vice Chair Richards would like to introduce a bill. A motion to move the committee of the whole requires a second and then a 2/3 vote from the Senate. So do I have a second on this motion?
Second.
All right, let me go to the sheet. Motion to committee of the whole. All right, I'm going to go down the roll once again. A yes vote is a vote to move into the committee of the whole. A no vote is to not. Just so everyone's clear, a motion to move the committee of the whole allows the Senate to essentially act as a committee in like a committee setting. It allows for the introduction of new legislation, for the casual amendment of that legislation, for us to have like an open discussion about it without needing a bunch of motions and stuff. And so without further ado, I will be taking the vote once again. Chair Barrett?
Yes.
Chair Benzea?
Yes.
Senator El Hadidi?
Yes.
Senator Goganani?
Yes.
I vote yes. Pro Tem Logan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Long?
Yes.
Vice Chair McFerrin?
Yes.
Senator Murphy?
Yes.
Senator Olmsted?
Yes.
Senator Parkhurst?
Yes.
Chair Powell?
Yes.
Senator Reich?
Yes.
Vice Chair Richards?
Yes.
Senator Sarsour,
Yes.
Senator Shett,
Yes.
Chair Shukla,
Yes.
Member at Large Smith,
Yes.
and Twinite is not here. All right, so. All right, we are now in committee of the whole. I will be handing the chair over to Ethics Chair Benzea.
Okay, y'all. I ask you to bear with me a little bit. It's my first time doing this.
No problem.
Yeah. If anyone wants to speak, the committee of the whole is more informal, so just use the raise your hand feature on Zoom. I believe Senator Richards is a sponsor of this bill, so if you actually want to speak first and just give everyone a brief description.
So, 1 second, I'll be sharing my screen in like half a second here so that everyone can see.
I can go ahead and get started while he's doing that.
Go ahead.
So essentially, I'm not going to say too much about it. I'm going to also turn it over to any of the co-sponsors, Senator Barrett, Senator Shukla, Logan, or Senator Smith, who may want to speak on about it as well. The bill is kind of cut and simple. The student code, as many of the returning senators know, and people who've been involved in student government, and for those who are new, will soon find out, is very, very confusing and at times ineffective when we're trying to get things done. And so in an effort to clear that up and also give you some background, on March 24th, we passed a bill that was presented by our outgoing ONA chair that made some changes to the external appointment process and how we do things to help the vice president with that process, because it is a tedious process. However, in doing that, we kind of made things a bit more confusing in certain areas, especially when trying to decide whether or not you're applicable to apply to a certain office, and or whether or not you kind of how the process works with oversight and the renewal process as well. And in an effort to assist the vice president and whomever else responsible for these appointments, as well as give everyone an equitable opportunity to contribute to, let's say, any external appointment role they may want to vie for. I kind of came up with this bill, this language here, also complementing what Senator Barrett and R&J had already been doing, some of the work they had been doing in the last committee meeting, to kind of look at the dual service prohibition clause, which already was a gray area to begin with prior to the new amendments, and then after that, it kind of after that new amendment was made and new clause was added, it kind of added an additional gray area, if you will, to what we can and can't do and where senators can and cannot serve. And so I want to open the floor up, of course, for discussion in committee as a whole, as well to any of my co-sponsors, as well as to Vice President Priyanka, who may also have any insight into or perspective into this.
Yes, if any of the co-sponsors or the VP want to speak on the bill before we open it up to general membership, go ahead.
I think if everyone's good with it, I do have just something to say about it really quickly. I think something really important about this is understanding that like our role in Senate doesn't stop or end in Senate. And I think that it's important to realize that there's experiences that serving on these appointments, along with the other people that it provides, still being able to serve on external appointments, it makes the branch and undergraduate student government in general more cohesive as a unit and kind of stops it from being a very separate piece by piece kind of group. So I think that that's a really important thing to consider, is both the experiences that it's kind of preventing people from and also the confusion that it is causing when you're moving from one branch to the other between members. So I think supporting this bill is really important, and that's something to consider when doing
that. Yes, Senator Logan. And if you guys didn't see the message in the chat, if you have something to say, just raise your hand and I'll add you to our order of our.
Thank you. Also echoing off of what Senator Smith and Senator Richards have already brought to the floor, this bill will provide more opportunity for communications between both Senate and the exec branch. I feel as though personally dealing with the confusing area of this bill and of other legislation that is current and available, it's definitely a gray area where senators are not able to hold both positions. And I feel as though being able to hold both positions offers new perspectives and new ideas. And this legislation that has been currently written is confusing, and the new legislation proposed by Senator Richards is innovative, and it helps to gravely define who can and who cannot serve. And I feel like that's very important going forward for new legislation and new senators in the upcoming future, so that they all know the differences in who can serve and who cannot serve, so no one will be penalized during the process. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Senator Shukla.
Hey y'all, I just wanted to reiterate some points. This has been personally a very confusing application process for myself as well. And a lot of the things, as we've known in the code, are not usually streamlined as well as we'd hope. So that those who are either well versed in the code can still be confused by some of its wording. So this bill also serves to kind of clear up some of those things and any questions other applicants may have about applying to any two roles. And it also hopefully will streamline the process a little bit and notify us more about what external appointments actually do and whether or not they're being useful or if we need to change them in any way. But thank you.
I just want to ask you all, once you've spoken, unless I don't know if you have something else you want to say, Senator Logan, to lower your hand unless you have a new point. But I would like to recognize the Vice President to speak.
Hi, everyone. I know the external appointment process has been difficult for us all. I've spent a lot of time talking to leadership within Senate to really try and make sure I understood the original bill that was put into law, so as to not impact students as much as I possibly could. But yeah, it's been interesting. I appreciate the work that Senator Lamar, Senator Shukla, Senator Logan, and Senator Barrett have put into writing this bill. There are, though, a few things that I wanted to ask questions about and just comment on within the bill. I know the initial bill that I talked to Senator Barrett about originally had stipulations that would, oh wait, y'all might have actually changed it. So originally the version I had still had senior advisors included as part of one group that's affected by the dual prohibition clause. It seems like that has now been removed from the bill. The other thing that we originally had in the bill that got removed from today was also a clause that would enable individuals who currently sit on the student advising committee to the chancellor to have the dual prohibition clause not apply to them due to the type of relationship that they establish with the chancellor. That is one amendment I'd like to see be added to this. Additionally, with the bi-monthly, Ashna's saying that the amendment on it. Where is that included right now onto this bill?
Point of information or point of inquiry, however that works.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we when I collaborated with Senator Barrett, we did add those things from his prior bill. So if you look under I think it's like number 5, Roman number 5, where this is an exception.
I think this is it, is it not?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, it looks like I have a different version open.
You may have the original version before I collaborated with Senator Barrett.
Perfect. Thank you so much for showing me that. The other thing I wanted to bring up, could you scroll down to, I think it was section 206. Yeah, so I do like the idea of an accountability clause. I was wondering, so GPSF currently uses a mid-year and end-of-year system that I was planning on implementing this year. In terms of the bi-monthly report, can y'all talk a little bit more about how you see that working and whether that would be a better process than doing a mid-year and end-of-year report that would line up with the review process that already exists with the R&J, O&A, and finance committees for nearly all of the external appointments?
So I can speak to that. So the accountability clause I put that in so that it could be talked about in the discussion tonight. I definitely am willing to, if my co-sponsors are as well, to accept that as a friendly amendment. That it was more so just making sure we have that bit in there. And Senator Barrett did inform me that you were working on that after I already did this. I just want to have that bit in there about making sure we ensure to whom oversight belongs, and just kind of making sure we hold our external appointments accountable as well as give you the opportunity to see what they're doing as well and deliver that to us.
Absolutely. One other point that I wanted to bring up after talking to some of the members of the executive branch, in cases where, so with the bill that Will had passed, Finance, O&A, and R&J now oversee a list of between 3 and 10 external appointments. There was a little bit of worry within the executive branch as to if a senator from an external appointment that was being seen by the committee within Senate that he sits on, how that would work, because we were worried that there could be potential conflict of interest there. If Reeves or anyone who I talked about this with would like to give some input on that conversation, would appreciate that as well. If not, those were most of the points that I had issue with. Oh wait, Reeves said give me 1 minute.
I know we've been speaking less, but since we're in committee, if someone's asked a question, like feel free to respond. Like it's a very casual setting.
So just to clarify, for an example, what you mean is like if an individual was appointed to SFAC and they also sat on the finance committee.
Yes, exactly.
I just wanted to clarify that for anyone who may have been like.
Just because like if they're also reviewing the individual's eligibility to stay on that committee come January, I worry that there's potential conflict of interest within Senate there. But I'm open to hearing what y'all's thoughts are, or whether that is a concern or not.
So I definitely see your concern with that. And I think later when we're actually debating this, we can talk about more solutions. But my initial thoughts would just be that person be a non-voting member for that specific nomination or discussion of sense. Similar to how in the appropriations process, if I am a treasurer or a part of the organization that we're appropriating funds towards, like I just don't participate in voting.
Okay, so if that's what y'all do, I'd love to see that potentially be added as an amendment to this bill, just to allay any of those concerns. And then we were wondering why the organizational treasurer was added as one of the positions that was affected by the due prohibition clause. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was the organizational treasurer initially included in the group of individuals that the dual prohibition clause had affected?
Well, that's one of those great areas we speak towards. It stated before, and it's kind of crossed out there up there. It says student body officers, and in that title, in Title 1, Chapter 1, it lists a lot of people, including the organizational treasurer, but we're not 100% certain whether or not that individual was a part of what that meant. So it's kind of like left to the interpretation of whomever is reading it, how they interpret what a student body officer is.
Absolutely. Stephen, could you tell us, Senate, a little bit about what the role of the organizational treasurer is?
I believe Stephen's off the call.
Okay, if Stephen's...
Yeah, I think he left.
I can speak to that.
Yes.
So the organizational treasurer, their role is really purely a transaction component, similar to any other student organization. So they don't have, their role for the executive branch is not to dictate policy or engage in policy, but it's to help specifically the policy chairs process their financial documents of the appropriated funds that Senate gives to the executive branch through the system. And so basically they just enter paperwork.
Yeah.
I'll just clarify that the treasurer was included as one of the people who fell under the dual office prohibition before this bill and even before Will's bill. But that's the way the code has been previously. So we could change it, but I'm just clarifying that this bill is not actually making a change to that.
Absolutely, and I just did want to clarify that because I'll be honest, I wasn't certain whether organizational treasurer was included in that or not. So thank you for that. Yeah, those are all the thoughts I had. Would love to hear what anyone else has to say about this.
Hey Shiv, is your hand up or your little thumbs up showing?
Yeah, my hand's up. I don't have a hand option because I'm the host of the meeting, so I just use the thumb.
Go ahead, you're up next then.
Oh, am I next? Fantastic. Okay. I just wanted to explain a little bit about why this has been really confusing for the process for both exec branch and Senate, and like clarify like any doubts that people had. So there was a bill that was passed last session on the 24th during the full Senate meeting that essentially took away the appointment hours of external appointments from Senate to these external appointments, and instead replaced it with brand new appointments come in front of Senate. Or no. Actually, I think even that's not our purview. It was any new appointments to external appointments are entirely within the office of the VP and that whole external appointment process. And Senate has the power to look at those appointments and review them and give them the option of whether or not they can remain in their seat for the next year, so that they don't have to reapply all over again. But along with that bill, what happened was the bill was signed and passed by Senate, or it was signed by the Speaker, passed by Senate, and it was sent to the President, and then the President never signed it. And so we never received the bills back, and so the past Speaker wasn't sure like whether or not to update the code because they never got the bill back. But because Ashton didn't sign in the last session, any bill that is passed by Senate and then is not signed within 10 days becomes law. So it became law April 7th, but the student code had not updated with that bill up until Sunday night when I updated the code with like all the bills that were like still like waiting to be updated. And so just like to explain for anyone who's confused, the reason there's so much confusion around this is because we had people applying to external appointments during the application process who were unaware that the bill that was passed last session included a clause that said that undergraduate senators cannot be appointed to external appointments. My take on this is I would love for senators to be able to hold external appointments, but it just poses a problem because we are now the ones who review those appointments, and it becomes a case of us reviewing ourselves if we allow that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think earlier we're speaking to like, I think Pri and Lamar were discussing about like how each committee has its own appointments that it reviews, and like people like on finance like review the SFAC appointments. So maybe if there is some sort of process to where to where senators who sit on certain committees can't apply to those appointments, maybe that will work out. But even then, I want everyone to be very cautious about any potential overreach of powers that we may be stepping on, because these appointments are very objectively appointed through the VP's office, and I wouldn't want any undue influence on an appointee's under review process because of the fact that senators themselves are the ones who end up reviewing the appointments after they're selected. So I just want everyone to keep that in mind. That's it.
Bobby, you're up next.
So my goal is to stay as neutral as possible in this. So in this bill itself, there's a couple fixes I think that need to occur. First, I think under can we scroll up a little bit? So point number 2 here, the following undergraduate judicial branch positions. Point number 6, that highlighted section, they're actually, there's a conflict in language between the Constitution, Joint Code, and then would be the undergraduate code. So the Supreme Court is not considered, you don't necessarily have to search it real quick. So the Joint Code itself, the Supreme Court's not listed as an undergraduate judicial branch. So I would either separate that out and just have undergraduate Supreme Court justices as a separate, like it could be, you can have 2 and then you can have 3, or you just take out the following judicial branch positions. So under the following, and I would delete undergraduate potentially and just leave judicial branch positions. And then that way you can say undergraduate student attorney general, undergraduate solicitor, student solicitor general. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Okay.
So you're saying just get rid of undergraduate here and undergraduate there?
Yeah, I think that would cover that in particular. Well, you can leave undergraduate in number 6 because then you're designating the classification of person, but you're not naming, because there's not officially an undergraduate judicial branch, I'm trying to make sure someone doesn't come back later and say, oh, this isn't valid language.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
I was just saying gotcha.
Okay. Second, I would consider removing the organizational treasurer. I'm not sure why, to be honest, they're under Title I, Chapter 1, because it's not a student body officer. So student body, the semantics of a student body officer is the student body vice president, the student body treasurer, which are really undergraduate student body vice president. They serve all of student government, while the organizational treasurer for the executive branch only serves the executive branch. So the semantics are a little different, so something small. I would, also, the only other thing I would add as you all figure this out, and this is a little bit more detailed than I missed it, and, is you can change code, but when a process has started, does Robert's rules allow a process to be changed? So for instance, if you change the code now, does this actually go into effect now, or does Robert's rules say because the external appointment round 1 process has started, it would go into effect after round 1 is done? I don't know the answer to that, but someone's going to probably have to dig into Robert's rules.
Yeah, can I respond to that, Drew?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so essentially, I think that was that mostly pertains to Ashna and I, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe some other individuals who might have applied for external appointments. I personally don't have an issue with that. I wasn't necessarily concerned about myself more so as I was correcting this policy issue. So I think Robert's rule says that it has to go into effect after the so technically the second round, because the process has already begun and concluded. So I wouldn't want to send the VP's office back through that tedious process again just because we made this change tonight based on the first round that already happened.
Chair Barrett, if you want to speak.
Yes, I will just clarify about the issue of senators reviewing themselves. I believe it would be an ethics violation if a senator were to vote on themselves. It'd be a conflict of interest. But I don't think that we necessarily need to clarify that in the bill. I think that because it's a conflict of interest, it can be covered through that instead of through this part of the code. And I will point out that something like this happens. For example, when Stephen became treasurer this year, we had to confirm that position, and so he was still a member of the Senate at that time, and he was up for consideration by the Senate, just as a senator who would be an external appointment would be up for consideration in the review process. I don't think we need a specific part of this bill to address that. Additionally, I'd like to go ahead and make an amendment to remove undergraduate under number 2 and make undergraduate Supreme Court justices its own, like section 3 of Part A.
Sorry, so you want to get rid of this?
No.
This? Well, you go ahead and do it, Baxter. You're already co-sponsored. We're in committee. It's not fun.
Lamar, is that friendly?
Yes, it's friendly. Can I speak, Drew, while he's doing that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so just to clarify one more point, I definitely want to commend the efforts of Priyanka, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, the vice president, and Reeves, and the entire executive branch that had a hand in the external appointments process. I, for one, know that's a tedious process, and this is in no way, commenting on your efforts at all. This is certainly predates you. The code has been confusing, from my understanding, for years, and unfortunately, we're the ones who inherited the obligation to fix it. So I want to thank you for that.
If the VP wants to speak.
Yeah. Thank you, Lamar, for acknowledging that, and thank you guys for the work you're doing to improve the code right now. One question that I wanted to bring up that So in Part D that was originally that is crossed out currently in this version of the bill, when it said members of the executive cabinet, after talking to Senate leadership, we originally interpreted that line to include both members of EBO as well as cabinet co-chairs. Just want to make sure I'm understanding right that with this new change, we're allowing cabinet co-chairs to also take on external appointments going forward, correct?
So, and I'll respond. I think Baxter may have some clarification here as well. And I will tell you this: I'm definitely open to accepting a friendly amendment of adding cabinet committee co-chairs. I think I can speak for everyone. We're still confused on what the term student body officers meant, because it was committee co-chairs was included under Title I, Chapter 1, but it wasn't necessarily defined as MADO co-chair, whatever like that. So if Barrett or whomever can let me know whether or not that was included before Will's bill, or whomever's this was there before, then I especially will accept it as a friendly amendment.
Yeah, not necessarily saying it needs to be an amendment, but just wanted to clarify that whether or not that was a change that was going to be incorporated, like whether or not the removal of cabinet co-chairs was a change that was going to be implemented.
When you say EBO, do you mean like the treasurer, VP, secretary, like those people?
When we say EBO executive board, it's the A1 position, so president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, director.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah. SVP Mosley.
Yeah. Oh, so I thought I was muted. So y'all all have made a lot of great points, and once again, Lamar, I appreciate your concerns and taking the time to draft up this bill. I was going to say a few points. Keshav mentioned a lot of them already. I also wanted to reference Senator Barrett's point about Stephen. So when he was getting passed through, that was to get confirmed for a different position. But this bill is talking about external appointments that take place simultaneously while also serving as an existing senator, which is the grounds of where it's potentially problematic is where we're coming from. Just because, and I understand that concern, but we are worried about providing the Senate essentially with a conflict of interest in that the original bill passed by Senator Wiener was giving Senate more oversight. And, as a former senator serving in a formal external appointment, my freshman and sophomore year, I could see where these problems may come from. And so I just wanted to echo what Keisha was saying too about being cautious about this. And I don't know if this means taking more consideration into what goes into the bill and how this affects the student body too, because, once again, Lamar, this is an incredible bill that you drafted up, but how much of the student body did you consult with? Because these problems just came up in the past couple of days. So how much time have you been able to discuss with other students? Whereas Will's bill that was drafted with Priyanka and was drafted with Elizabeth Kendrick, the former vice president, they took weeks of discussing with students outside of student government who were concerned. And, there's just something to be said about how much power this essentially gives Senate to be able to oversee themselves.
Can I respond, Drew?
Yeah, you can respond.
Yeah. So I will say one thing about the insight that you spoke towards about, whether or not whom I consulted. So I think that it's important to note that the major change here are the changes, of course, from Senator Barrett's legislation that he had already consulted with Priyanka about, and I'm pretty sure they kind of had already ironed that out. The major change here that I had suggested and added to this would be one, the fact that now senators will be able to serve as external appointments, and two, the accountability clause, which I think kind of adds into how we're looking at external appointments as the process as a whole. And I discussed this in depth with Senator Barrett because I'm not a code expert, and I want to get his perspective of knowing the code better than me. So what Will's bill did, in theory, did give us oversight of the external appointments in the process, but it's still, even with that bill, very unclear on how that works. Because while we do have the power to review external appointments, there is no said language explicitly stating what happens after that review process and to whom are we explicitly able to remove, because we know that now it says that the power rests with the president as far as appointing those external appointments. So the language is confusing as far as how.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead and finish on mine, but I'll speak on that right after you're done.
Well, yeah. So what I was saying was that, and when I consulted with Senator Barrett, because I wanted more clarification on it, because as those of you who are here knows, Will's bill is kind of extensive, and so I wanted his clarification from being chair of R&J. I recognize that there is a concern, especially from the executive branch, about whether or not senators can serve as external appointments. Having did it last year, and I don't know if Ashna, I think she was also an external appointment last year as well. In last session, I found an unfounded benefit from being able to be an external appointment and also contribute to the legislation that was going on the floor. I think that when it comes down to whether or not we can, quote unquote, review ourselves, I think that Ashna gave a very, very, very good analogy earlier when she said what goes on in the finance committee whenever we have an organization. In fact, Jack Purdy, who served as our finance committee chair, whenever the Senate's budget or the Senate's request came up, he would recuse himself since he is the treasurer, and we would vote. And he would, he would present to us, and he wouldn't contribute to that. Kind of similar to if a person was appointed to SVAC and he or she was on the finance committee, he or she could leave the room during that review process. I think it's also safe to say that not many senators are rushing to become external appointments, but it's also when you have the language that prohibits them from doing so, especially in the case where you serve as an external appointment in the past, you already begin that important and crucial work. I think we get in the realm of saying we're limiting this student because he or she is a senator from being able to contribute to a dialogue happening in these important committees, commissions, and or boards. Like I said, I don't want to say I don't see your argument, but I also see where there's a point to be made that we can, as senators, figure out a way to hold even those individuals who are external appointments in the Senate accountable.
Keshav, you're up next if you want to speak.
Yeah, so to speak up on on what exactly happens after the review process, Will's bill outlines this. So this is the updated code as of yesterday or the day before. So it doesn't just end with the appointment being appointed to their position. Like, we don't just end all communication there. We have constant access to all their records, all their notes, their attendance. In addition to that, there is a review process that happens in January where we do have the power to call in people if we believe that they're not doing their job correctly. The VP and the Senate both have that power. We can review all their notes. We can call them in for an in-person meeting. We can talk to them, and we have the option to terminate their appointment. We can give them the option to renew or say that no, like you're done. So to speak on that a little bit more, it's not just that we appoint them and say like, okay, ta-ta. Like, it's we do have stuff in place to make sure they're doing their job. Like, any Senate committee can also instigate like if you read here, Senate committee may also instigate a review of external appointments under their purview. We give them the option to renew, not renew, which would mean that they have to apply again, and then dismissal, which would mean that they just can't apply again to the position. And so that's a little bit on how that works. And then on the point that just about like senators being external appointments, I think I do understand that we all as students want to have a voice in the matters on campus and don't want that voice to be limited, and want to be involved. But at the same time, we should consider the fact that these external appointments were designed to have students from the student body fill them and have those students like really advocate for issues and stuff. And as senators, we're already elected officials. We have that voice in the Senate. And by being able to call these people in and discuss their work with them and having firsthand access to their notes, to their meetings, we essentially have a working relationship with all these committees. If you so wish to work with the committee, while you may not have voting power, sure, on the committee, you can still call up whatever external appointment we have to that committee, sit down with them one-on-one, or even attend their committee meeting. I'm sure these committees aren't closed by any means. You can go in, sit in them like any public meeting and offer your insight as a senator. In addition to that, one example that comes up to mind of how it could be an upset of power a little bit is currently on SVAC. There is, I don't know how many external appointments, but there are, I think, at least 2 external appointments in SVAC, maybe 3. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but there is at least 3, okay. So there are 3 external appointments on SVAC. But the thing is, on SVAC, we already have 3 senators sitting on the committee. We have is the pro temp too? I forget if the pro temp does too, but it's at least myself, Elena, and Ashna that will be sitting in the committee this coming session. And if in addition to the three of us, we also have other senators on the committee, it kind of closes off spots for students in the student body who don't really know what's happening, who want their own insight and the fees that they're paying for the school as well. And SFAC isn't the only example. You could talk about like hardship parking or like, I don't know, like the radio. Like, I understand that all of us want to be involved on campus and to help make a change. And I truly respect that. I really, really do. But I think we need to be really, really careful and make sure that we're not trampling on people who already view student government as some sort of like an unapproachable thing that like is made up of a bunch of people who are like already kind of friends and like, you know, like hold like the same positions, you know? We should be careful of that and be willing to give some other students the chance to have a voice in these processes as well.
Senator Richards wanted to respond.
Yes. So, can you, Keisha, I think you're doing a screen share. Could you go back to the code?
Yeah. Also, I apologize. You have a speaking list, right? Because I accidentally just cleared all the button things.
Yeah, I have it. Don't worry.
Okay, dope. My apologies. Zoom is weird. Back to the code. Yeah, here we are.
I think it's right there. You can stop right there. So,
Okay.
Scroll down a little bit. I'm looking at part E right there. And so,
Okay.
and this is part of the conversation I discussed with Senator Barrett, as well as some other co-sponsors who contribute to this bill. The issue is that we speak about oversight, which is what we, in theory, are supposed to have in the Senate, and that is what I believe the goal of Will's bill was. However, to be clear, we're sharing responsibility for oversight with the Office of the Vice President and the President as outlined in the code. We do have the power to review, but if you look at E right down, if you can highlight it, where it says, after such review, the student body vice president shall make a recommendation to the undergraduate president that the executive appointee shall be either retained or dismissed. And then the undergraduate president shall determine the final appropriate, action and such, whatever after that. And the thing with that is that we're saying that the Senate has oversight, but yet all in all, the vice president makes the recommendation to the president, whom has the final say.
It's not just the vice president. The Senate can also do that. If you read here.
Right, but see, look,
if you read
the confusion I'm getting is that whether or not it sounds like we're trying to say that the Senate has complete oversight or the only oversight over this process, whereas it seems that we're sharing that with the members of the exec branch. And so when I speak directly towards whether or not we can serve on as external appointments, I'm speaking in regards to the fact that we have the ability to remove ourselves from a conversation and or a review process that entails us as individuals. So if I was appointed to SFAC and I'm a member of the Finance Committee, which oversee the review process of SFAC appointees, I can directly decline to contribute, or if we added a friendly amendment to this bill, be prohibited from contributing to that conversation. I don't necessarily see the conflict in whether or not I contribute, what bearings that would have on the other senators responsible for reviewing that role. We all as senators have an obligation to be, wholesome and to be not narrow-minded in any review process and in drafting legislation as well. I think it's very important to consider when looking at how we are, considering that whole argument that this oversteps the boundaries of, powers and, division of powers.
I do want to move. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, you're fine. I also know that Senator Barrett maybe will speak more to that based on our conversation earlier and his knowledge of the code.
I do want to move down the speaking list. I do think it is important to clarify, though, when we talked about how senators can have an open mind and sort of review these appointments objectively, I do think it's worth it that we have other provisions sort of keep us from running into an issue of abuse of power or even conflict of interest, like in the way the ethics committee is a separate standing committee when we do have to review ourselves. We're not reviewed by our immediate peers in that way. So I do think it's worth it to question or at least maintain the idea that we might want to have that for a process like this as well. But the next senator to speak is Chair Shukla. So.
All right, so I guess now with the continued discussion, I have a couple of comments. One, I would really like to outline what specific officers are supposed to be included in that Section 105 Part A, just because at the beginning of the code, it is very unclear about which officers are student body officers in Title I, Chapter 1. And for me specifically, this is kind of questioning whether or not deputy chief of staff should be included or not, because that is a flexible role and it is kind of a gray area. So I don't know if that should receive further, I guess, discussion. Just working in the chief of staff office, I am aware of the different roles within the office itself, and deputy is kind of a gray area, so I would like to talk more about that just to reiterate. And then secondly, I agree with Drew that we should add a friendly amendment somewhat outlining, like, just saying that this is a conflict of interest, just because, yes, it's outlined somewhere else in the code, but one of our problems is that things are outlined in different parts of the code and they are missed more than half the time. So if we streamline that process, it's going to be more like, this is a direct conflict of interest and I need to step out if I'm being reviewed for an appointment or something of that sort, just to keep in mind. And that's it.
The next person on our speaking list is Chair Powell.
All right, hey guys. I am a little nervous about this bill. I actually got to talk to Lamar about it earlier, and so he's kind of heard my one concern, which is I don't think giving senators the option to serve on external appointments is a solution necessarily for this, but rather I think that we might find a useful opportunity out of actually, if we're not happy with the oversight process, which I completely agree, there definitely needs to be some changes there. Maybe we should look at that instead before we jump into letting senators serve in these external appointments, because I don't want to flip-flop back and forth, because we just said no, and then we're going to say yes, and if we find something that comes up, we're going to say no again, and that makes me a little nervous. I really am just not going to repeat everything that Keshav said, but I agree with a lot with what was brought up, and I think we should really consider those points, and yeah, I'll just go ahead and stop there.
Senator McFerrin.
Hi, so just as a new senator, I would love some more context. Just because it seems like from an outside perspective that it would be great to have multiple voices and to have new voices in those external appointments, and individuals in those appointments that can dedicate all their time and energy into serving in that appointment, and have senators dedicate all their time and energy into their duties in the Senate. So it seems like one of the main advantages of having someone in the Senate and in an external appointment would be if there weren't enough people applying for these external appointments. So just for my own edification, do we have typically, historically, enough people trying to get into these external appointments and quality applicants that we could fill those positions without having to resort to using senators and potentially having that conflict of interest?
Pri, if you want to respond to that.
No, so I can absolutely respond to that. So the way we've typically done recruitment for external appointments is through a fall and a spring cycle. This cycle, we had almost, I'm going to say about 60 applicants for the spring positions. While in the past we have had some difficulties filling those external appointments, usually only though 3 or 4 seats maximum, there were changes to how we were allowed to recruit this year that's allowing us to create more of a rolling cycle application that will ensure that we do actually get enough individuals sitting in these seats because of that change. But when we haven't been able to fill every seat, it's only been maximum 4 or 5 positions that we've then needed to tap into student government or reach out to individuals that we know personally outside of the historical fall and spring cycle. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Chair Barrett.
I wanted to respond about which people were included in this bill, leaving senators aside. The deputy chief of staff is not a codified position, and so that's not something that we have it's not in the code as a role, and so not something we directly have any authority over. And then I also want to just clarify that the current student body officers, as it calls it, are all the people listed under Article 1 of Chapter 1 of Title 1. So it has Article 1, student body officers, and then Article 2 is the cabinet. And with Will's bill right now, the cabinet is not eligible, but this bill would only deals with the specific officers who are listed in the bill. And I would like to make an amendment to remove the organizational treasurer from that list.
We're in committee, so it's up to Lamar.
That's friendly. That's friendly.
While that's going on, Senator Sheth, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, I had a few questions and one concern. First kind of concern I had is it seems I think it said bi-monthly and all the external appointments seemed a little bit excessive as far as how much oversight we should have in like looking over each committee. I felt like it would be more beneficial for us and less burdensome for each external appointment if we, at request, or if the vice president had some concern, that we would request some sort of oversight. It seems like we're adding like external burden on these appointments without us like actually needing it every single time for every single appointment, at least since it says twice a month. And another concern I had was, I think it's been reiterated a few times in looking over our own senators who might be appointed to a particular position. If someone is serving in a position and they're expected to recuse themselves, I mean, that's not a codified decision that has to be made. We would hope they would recuse themselves, or I think was mentioned before, if we had some sort of committee that would be like particularly, that would just be made to review these kind of considerations, that would make sense, like the ethics committee. But overseeing or having any oversight of someone who's serving in a position and you being involved in any part, shape, or form of like having discretion in removing that person does not seem fair to either the people who might have been appointed to that position or to the people on that committee in general. So those are just a few concerns that add the excessive burden of like reporting each month or twice a month what exactly is going on. It's a burden on the Senate and the appointment, and I feel like it should be left up to the executive branch in playing like the main role in determining all that stuff. And we should be almost a fallback in reviewing documents when
Can I say something real quick?
Oh yeah, of course.
With that, this isn't necessarily asking for a response from Senator Sheth or Jay. I was just wondering, is this going to be additional? So a change that was added this year was the fact that the external appointments are going to have to submit their own documents and attendance and contributions to this like entire Google Drive. It's going to be kind of extensive. Will this be these bi-monthly reports? Will this be in addition to that, or is this something completely separate that I'm not understanding correctly? If Lamar or Baxter or someone wants to jump on that.
Yeah, and I'll take this opportunity to also respond to Jay as well. So I had already deemed Priyanka's recommendation as friendly. I was going to wait to the end to make that amendment, but since she had already been working on a plan to implement about mid-year and an end-of-year report, I had already said I was completely in agreement with that. Because we weren't, I don't think any of the co-sponsors were aware of that or that about the Google Doc that Elena mentioned. We just wanted to put that accountability measure in there. If we want to change the language to, Priyanka being able to give us that mid-year and end-of-year report at will, as well as using that Google form, that Google Drive folder you spoke of. If you want to change that language to that, I'm completely fine with that. Once again, as I told Priyanka earlier, and also to respond to Jay, that accountability clause I put in there was just so we could discuss it tonight, because I want to make sure that we discuss the fact that accountability is also an issue, especially when we discuss about who shares oversight. And also to Jay's other point about whether or not it will be codified, whether or not so if we put it here, which I've also accepted as a friendly amendment to recuse ourselves or whatever when we're being reviewed, if it's here, it would be law. If we pass it and it got signed, it would be law. and a good example of that is that it is prohibited that if you, as prescribed in our code, if you are the treasurer or the president, I don't know if it's all of an organization funding from by the Senate, and you are on the committee that is appropriating those funds, you have to prohibit yourself by the code. So there's nothing saying that we couldn't codify or make it. I didn't want you to think that we couldn't do that because we can, and that was another friendly amendment I also adopted earlier, that we could do that. So to kind of have that set in stone, so we don't have to decide at will if we want to recuse ourselves. It's there. You have to. You're obligated to recuse yourself.
Speaker Javadi, you're next.
Yeah. Okay. So based on all the discussion that we've heard tonight, it's very clear that this bill needs a lot more work and discussion outside of full Senate, especially because the external appointment process is now over, and so we can't go back and retroactively give appointments or take away appointments once the process is already once those things have been sent out. And so I'd like to ask either Lamar or Elena to. Would you be willing to refer this bill back to R&J or ONA?
I was about to make that motion. I just saw your message. I didn't see it at first. I'm still figuring out Zoom. But yeah, I do want to make the motion to refer this to Chair Baxter and R&J.
R&J? All right, so there's been a motion to refer this. Okay, so first we need to exit committee of the whole. So are you going to hear a motion? Are you going to make a motion to exit committee of the whole?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to exit committee of the whole.
All right, so how's it going to work? We're going to exit committee of the whole. This bill will then go from committee of the whole to general orders. We'll then move it from general orders and refer it back to R&J, just so everyone's aware. A motion to exit committee of the whole requires a 1/4 vote from all senators. So honestly, real quick, could everyone just give either a thumbs up or a thumbs down in Zoom?
How do you do a thumbs up?
Yes or no?
You can do a thumbs up reaction as well.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No worries. Give a yes or a no. Give a yes or a no. One, two, three, four, five, six.
Right, Keisha, can we just vote to report this without prejudice so that we actually report it out of the committee of the whole onto the general orders calendar?
Yes. Okay. All right. So everyone clear your votes. My apologies. There's been a motion to report this bill without prejudice. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. Now give me your yes and no votes. Sorry, y'all. All right. That's a majority. Okay. So this bill will now go on. General orders. All right. Now, okay, we'll just do a voice vote. Motion to exit committee of the whole. All in favor, say aye. And yourself.
Aye.
Aye.
That sounds like 1/4 to me. Okay, we are now exited from committee of the whole. I will reclaim the chair. Okay, we're now on the general orders calendar. We're on USB 10205. Lamar, there's been a motion to revert this bill back to R&J. Am I correct?
Yes.
All right, is there a second on that?
Second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor of referring this bill back to R&J?
Aye.
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 Fantastic. All opposed? All right, so this bill has been referred to R&J.
DJ, that question can go for you as well. Being that
Speaking, sorry.
y'all, you and I work as a team, so you can answer the question. No, you can ask any question that you have for the rest of the exec as well.
I don't have any questions as far as answering other people. I mean, I don't have any questions as far as asking other people, but as far as to answer Anaya's question, I feel like it's something that I bring to the leadership team's experience, specifically experience in
Katie, you're muted.
Did anyone hear Senator Logan? What happened?
I think that's background noise that was on her microphone when she's unmuted, but I could be wrong.
Yeah,
Okay. Did I miss anything? Okay, no. All right, so this bill has been referred to R&J. Thank you all for your discussion. I think it was a very healthy conversation, but it's clear that full Senate is not the place for this discussion. It needs to be referred back to a committee so we can be further fleshed out.
Interject there.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm going to put my email and phone number in the chat now. And so for those of you who want to contribute, reach out and want to discuss this, I know hopefully I can get something on the books with Priyanka and whomever else, I think Danny as well, to further discuss this as well, contribute to R&J's ongoing conversation. So I'll have that information there.
You should send it in the Slack as well, Lamar.
Yeah, because the Zoom chat will expire. All right, now this bill has been referred to R&J. Moving on the calendar. Does anybody have any notices or announcements they'd like to give the Senate? All right, the only announcement that I have is to please complete the onboarding form. This will be our last session meeting of the semester. Thank you all so much for being here tonight and for offering your points of discussion. It was greatly appreciated all around. Yeah, the code will be updated, or no, there were no bills updated the code with yet. Yeah, so this will be thrown back to R&J. I will post information after finals about summer meetings. But yeah, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Fantastic. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right.
Second.
Call roll. All right. Chair Barrett.
Aye.
Chair Benzea.
Aye.
Senator El Hadidi.
Aye.
Senator Goganani.
Aye.
Yes. Pro Temp Logan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Long.
Aye.
Vice Chair McFerrin.
Aye.
Senator Murphy.
Aye.
Senator Olmsted.
Aye.
Senator Parkhurst.
Aye.
Chair Powell.
Aye.
Senator Reich.
Aye.
Vice Chair Richards.
Vice Chair Richards, his internet connection just dropped. He just sent me a message.
Oh, rip. Okay. All right. I'll kind of say yes. Senator Sarsour.
Aye.
Senator Shett.
Aye.
Chair Shukla.
Aye.
And Member at Large Smith.
Aye.
And Florinite is not present. All right. Vote of 18 to 0 to 0. We are officially adjourned. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Free, can I talk after? But yeah. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Want me to stay on, or do you want to hop on a separate call?
Thank you.
Just stay on and Zoom.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. All right, Danny can stay, it's fine. So, bill didn't pass. What this means is, do the committees that SAC and this
Hey,
SAC have a
I'm not
meeting?
gonna stay on, but thanks y'all. Keep me updated.
Yeah, okay. Adios.
Bye, Cree. Bye. Oh yeah, so this was actually the question I was about to ask you. How the fuck does this affect SAC people and senior advisors if the other bill got pulled off?
Yeah, so that's the problem. Because this bill was taking way too long to Senate and it used to go back to committee. But does SAC meet during finals? Does SAC meet this week or the next coming week?
Have a meeting tomorrow.
Meeting tomorrow. Do you have quorum in the meeting without one member?
So the thing is, because we don't send out, here's what I'm thinking is the solution right now for SAC, because we're not going to send out acceptances until like Sunday. Because tomorrow's meeting is with the chancellor. Like, it's not just an internal meeting, it is with the chancellor.
Right.
We're not sending out acceptances until Sunday, and I haven't sent out renewals to anybody yet. I'm thinking it's fine for whoever currently sits on SAC just to come to the meeting tomorrow. because technically none of them know if they've been renewed or not.
Yes, so you just want all the previous members. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Why I held off. I know somebody brought up the issue of like I didn't know if I was renewed or not. I didn't want to send out renewals until we figured all this stuff out because I didn't want to have to renew somebody and then have to pull them off.
Yeah, okay. So we're gonna keep this hold up. The meeting's over.